We are Pro Cannabis Media.
All right, we are back. Wait, here we go. We are back on Weed Talk. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media, and
I'm Curt Dalton with Cannabis.net.
Man, did we just give you a big plug, Curt,
That was awesome. I was watching on our studio production area. It was great.
That is awesome, and I appreciate that. With that interview that you just saw was with the Cannabis Society of Massachusetts. You know, in our last half hour, we talked a little bit about an association of like-minded people, and that's what the Cannabis Society does, and they have these Toasty Tuesday things, and Jeremiah was nice enough, one of the founders there, to sit down with me and hang out and talk, and Michael Latulip, I think is his last name.
So, yeah.
Yeah, is also a co-founder of that. We also want to thank our supporters. You saw briefly their logos. That was Caroline's Cannabis of Uxbridge. It's Legal Seafoods, and it's Weedjits.com. And remember, if you go on that Weedjits site, use Weed Talk 2020 as your code to get 10% off. Please do it, and you should try this product out. And you know what? I think it's like $40. So save some money and save your lungs. That's really what it's about. Get healthy, get a little more healthy anyway. All right, Hillary King and Curt Dalton are back in studio with us, and we welcome in an old friend, Richard.Guerra, who was one of the first people on my podcast, In the Weeds, over a year ago. He was with Sensi magazine in Colorado at the time, and now he has relocated here to New England, to Boston, where he went to school at BU. So, Rich, welcome back to New England.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much, Jerry.
Tell me a little bit about Sensi magazine. How's it going? What's going on over there?
Yeah, we are growing and changing. Sensi magazine, city lifestyle, health and wellness. Get a little closer there?
Yeah, that was that signal.
Relaxing.
Right. That's all right.
Yeah, so, Sensi Magazine's city lifestyle, health and wellness publication that is pro-cannabis. And we are expanding into new markets all the time. So since last we spoke, probably doubled the amount of markets nationally that we are printing magazines, local publications. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so...
How many?
We've got 13 live right now.
Okay.
So we're going to be taking off in Tampa Bay, and we just got started in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. We're pumping in Detroit. We opened Coachella Valley and North Bay, California.
Coachella Valley, now the second time I've actually heard of Coachella Valley, California. Call me crazy. I live in Massachusetts. I don't even go into North Shore or South Shore because I'm in Metro West. But Coachella Valley in California is quite the place, I understand.
It's
not
unreal.
In the Emerald Triangle. California's a big place.
It's the opposite of the Emerald Triangle as far as like location and terroir, and just the whole, it's like desert versus... woods.
The woods. Well, the hills. The hills are alive, right? And
Rich, for people that aren't familiar, you have it's a really nice looking magazine, and that camera right there. Kind of give people who might not be familiar with the brand and the magazine, kind of what it's about, and if companies that wanted to get in touch with cannabis consumers, why they'd want to choose your magazine, say for ads.
Sure. Yeah. So recently we did a redesign of the logo right here. And just generally, we've redesigned the font. We've got new sections in here. Let's see real quick. We've got the buzz in the front. So that's going to be kind of like all kinds of things happening locally, culturally. We've got, looking through here, you can watch me do this. The life. So that's going to be kind of right. This month, we're discussing local food, local restaurant, the scene. It's got a cultural calendar. In some markets, we've got like horoscope, that kind of thing. And just ultimately, as far as who our demographic is, it spans from about 25 all the way up. And just people that are progressive, people that are professionals, and obviously local. So generally, especially in this market, I think for a business that is talking about products, talking about dispensaries, retail locations. Right now, especially, that is kind of exactly who you're looking to reach and sell your products to.
And where can you get Sensi magazine? It's mostly, I see them in dispensaries.
Right. And that's because, because we have cannabis businesses, we're allowing them, or we're open to them advertising. We do have to have a certain percentage of our copies definitely going to a place that's 21 and up. And that's generally, I think, the rule for all advertising involving the industry. So yeah, that makes it easy for us. We're going to drop most of them off at dispensaries. But I mean, at this point, glass shops, spas, yoga studios, hotels. I mean, you can kind of contact me directly if you're open to our publication being at your location, and I can add you to the list, and you can tell me how many. You know, I recently went to the W Hotel, and I ran into a woman that's maybe an older lady. I don't know, she's probably in her 60s.
She's probably my age.
Oh,
Okay,
boy.
I didn't want to go that
You can
far.
say it. It's okay.
About halfway across that.
I get it. I probably knew her.
Yeah.
She loved it. I had
It's a beautiful magazine.
I had a magazine in my back pocket.
Yep.
She's like, "This is perfect for a business that I work with that essentially is like an elderly home, a home for folks that are elderly."
Right, they can learn about it.
She's like, "Please put me down," and so we're sending them there now at this point, like
Definitely
50
over
copies
21.
a month.
Yeah, definitely well over 21, as they say. Right.
But Rich, you started in Colorado, a mecca. You've come back to Mass, and we're a few years behind. We're getting started with our rec, and everything's going.
It's been interesting.
Give what is it like coming from Colorado and kind of the major leagues? We'll use an analogy in sports.
Yeah.
And you're kind of coming to the new expansion team that's 2 years in. What do
Yeah.
you see?
It's been a wild few years for me. I mean, I moved out of Boston, where I lived for 10 years, to Austin briefly, where there was no cannabis happening. And I was like, get me out of here. And I got to Denver and was blown away at a Sensi night. My first cannabis event years ago, when we just had Denver, was a Sensi night full of brands. And I love branding. I love advertising and magazines and television. I'm big, sell me something, you know. And,
Right.
So I was blown away, and I took all the brands home. I always say that. And early on, and there was a lot of shops and a lot of products and a lot of competition and a lot of marketing and a lot of just all that. And there still is in Denver. And so coming out here, I mean, when I first got here, moved back about maybe 6-7 months ago, I was a little shocked at just how little the amount of, considering how many years it's been happening, how many shops there actually were. And the shops, the retail locations, okay, we don't have a lot of those, but what's still kind of blowing my mind is there's not many product like brands. Like there's not a ton of different edible line options, and there's not a ton of different concentrate options yet. And I mean, now I've kind of come to understand why that is, as far as manufacturing and whatnot.
The reason why it is that the governor of this state wanted to drag this industry down and give it every single regulation and make it as difficult as possible to start.
For certain kinds of people.
I'm sorry, I'm going to continue to throw them under the bus.
I'm learning this.
Because, and you know, the thing about Massachusetts, Eddie Edelman, what was it? Sports, politics, and revenge. Wasn't that Eddie Edelman's line?
That was Edelman's line,
right? And it certainly still fits, doesn't it? That being said, extremely frustrating that he appointed the commission himself, and you know, they're doing the best job they can.
Yeah.
But he could have gotten a little bit wider variety of commissioners. Let's just say. Okay? I mean, the only public official in Massachusetts that voted for question 4, which was the legalization of adult use cannabis, was Alex Morse, the mayor of Holyoke. And you heard his story a little bit, that the Alchemy League, there's a reason why they went out there. They're embraced. And he's turned that city around. That's the whole idea of this. Regulate it, tax it, and then throw that tax money back into education and put it into the roads, because we need help with both of those around here.
Yeah.
Hillary, what do you think of the Cannabis Commission?
You know, I think they're doing the best they can do. They have, well, okay, that's not true. They're not doing the best they can do. But I think they have so many different people and businesses and lobbyists and organizations, including, you know, the Mass Municipal Association that represents the governments of the towns and cities in Massachusetts, that some of them are fighting against this stuff. You know, public health and public safety groups, the Massachusetts State Police. Like, on the other side of the pro-legalization crowd, that we think everybody wants this, there's also a lot of, like, vocal, you know, against this, you know, for all kinds of reasons. So I think it's like, you know, they can't make everybody happy, right? So there's always going to be somebody who's upset about what they're doing, but it shouldn't be the most disenfranchised people that legally they're supposed to support.
The law actually in Massachusetts is supposed. It actually says right in there.
Yeah.
Those who've been most affected by the war on drugs should get the first crack at these licenses, and they have not done that. And you heard the frustration by the Alchemy League.
I think it's a money thing too. I think it's capitalism. It's when medical came around, there was the capital requirement that you had to have a lot of money in the bank and prove it. And so, I mean, even that process that was so politically, red tape to get a medical license for a dispensary shut out most people, most small business people, and most people in the existing cannabis industry. And then RMDs, medical dispensaries, were given priority, just the same as economic empowerment, whether they had opened their doors or not.
Right.
And so there's been this kind of question around, like, how fair could that possibly be? But things are starting to shift.
Oh, absolutely. Rich, go ahead.
Back to like what comparing Colorado to this market and how things are progressing. I mean, there's a ton of brands, tons of shops. Hardly any of them were thinking about social equity when they opened up, and pretty much none of them are owned by anyone but a white male to this day. And there's a lot of business out there. So this. Yeah, maybe it's sticky and it's not working out perfectly yet, but we are having these conversations, and it is the time to make sure that it is integrated in that way. And it is, I think, it's looking good. I think we're going to have a lot more businesses here real quick that are focused on that, and so that's encouraging. Ultimately, as well, there's some things I saw out there and heard about what happened in the first few years of legalization, and even years later. That I don't think we're going to really, hopefully we're not going to see go down here, that involve a whole bunch of gray market, whole bunch of backroom dealing by the legal businesses with products going out the back door, that kind of thing. And I have a feeling Massachusetts, from what I can tell, we're being so maybe slow moving or really, really stickler about the details. And that's good. I mean, we should be doing that in every market. And it's
good in the beginning
because
as a parent, you set boundaries and parameters for your children, and your job is to keep them safe and to encourage them and all that. But in time, when they grow into young adults and then adults, it might be time to change those rules a little bit, right?
Well,
so the same thing's happening in California right now.
We need regulations.
We need regulations
on these plants, on this medicine, on these products, and
I'm not saying Wild Wild West. I'm not saying that. Okay, you need regulations, but the process of actually opening stores, getting the business going. You need to put some gas on the fire here, guys, and get it going a little bit faster. That's just my point.
Just a caveat. Some of the slowness of the pace is due to what's called open meeting laws and things like mandatory public comment periods that kind of bake in like 30, 60, sometimes 90 days of a comment period. I think 60 days is typical, where you have to let it sit and give time for the public to read about it, to catch up on what's going on, to be able to give comment about specific things that they would support or not support. And the open meeting laws require the Cannabis Commission to do all of their business in public. If they can only talk two at a time, and any more than that, they have to be in a public forum that must be announced, 48 hours in advance, and otherwise they can't really talk to each other. So when it's a great thing that their meetings are open to the public and anybody can go. It's a great thing that we have, the due process of public discourse and the ability to contribute ideas. It's just a matter of who they're listening to.
Right, exactly right. And they shouldn't be afraid to be a little bit more proactive with getting those licenses out there instead of making a lot of public appearances. Now, I understand that the idea is the public can come to you and you can go to the public. Right, I get that. But with all the work that still has to get done, I feel like the priorities are a little skewed. But it's only the beginning. It's only this is the second year, for crying out loud. I mean, Rich, you came from Colorado. I don't know what the second year was like in Colorado.
I've heard crazy horror stories, and it was a mess. And
right, and they've
a lot of
and how many years now? 10, 12 years in Colorado?
for medical.
Yeah.
And I will say, I like drove around. I did pop-ups at different types of dispensaries. I hung out in all kinds of shops all over the state. And a lot of the businesses that are operating that, got their door, opened their doors in the beginning, a lot of the beginning shops, they, in the end, they didn't have much business know-how. They they just somehow got a license and somehow opened the door, and all these years later, they're struggling, they didn't grow, and I think that these towns that are putting these shops in place and the state overall, and I know myself, I want to see as many of these businesses thrive and grow and do a great job. I don't want to see failure in business, and I mean, sure, it's inevitable, but I wanted to plug the article for this month, The Great Green Hope, and I'll just read kind of what it's about. So
who wrote it?
It's by Emile Noel Provost.
Okay.
And it says a few economically disadvantaged cities and towns in Massachusetts have streamlined the process for cannabis companies to set up shop and launch worker education programs, welcoming the industry, as well as the jobs, tax revenue, ancillary businesses it brings with open arms. So that's the cover story of this month.
It's funny you mentioned that, because when the Alchemy League women were here, they talked about, we don't know. They just started an educational program in October, I believe, of 2019 to help those economically empowered. They just started an education program to say, here's how you can run your business. Here's how you do this.
The
Here's
social
how
equity
you
program.
They just started that.
It's different than economic empowerment.
Okay, thank you.
Two separate programs, but yeah, that's a great thing. They're providing training,
right?
Business advice, things like that to these companies that need a leg up.
Yeah. So again, it's the speed of the process that perhaps frustrates me the most, and I know it frustrates a lot of people.
Yeah, I was talking to Ben Gelt, who we're friends today, and mentioned
the Worcester didn't Worcester have a Business Journal thing yesterday?
He was in town for something like that.
Okay, yeah.
But we were just discussing the social equity aspect, and we spend so much time thinking about the business owners that are going to be having an opportunity through the social equity conversation. And he was mentioning that he felt like, and I agree, that like social equity is about the communities. It should be about the communities themselves, I think. And maybe we're missing that point, like, in the sense that, like, yes, individuals and maybe minority groups overall have been hurt by these archaic laws, but still have their families and the communities and these towns. So how is it that this new social equity program how is that going to trickle back to the communities themselves and not just individuals looking to do business? I mean, it's awesome that some folks like we had on here before are now have an opportunity that maybe they wouldn't have had to do some business and make some money. Right. But what about the communities themselves that have been affected by these laws?
Yeah.
Well, the social equity program, entrepreneurship is only one track. They have different tracks within the social equity program. So entrepreneurship track, you're getting support to start a business, to get a license, to open a marijuana establishment. Mm-hmm. On the other tracks, like cultivation or manufacturing, they're training people to take jobs at these businesses. So that's one aspect that they're training.
I guess I'm thinking, like, is their money going to go to the...
Well, that's what the positive impact...
That's
what the positive impact plans should be for. Like, obviously, 3%, the local tax revenue does go into the general fund of that municipality, that they can do what they want for their local community. But every marijuana establishment is supposed to have a positive impact plan that outlines exactly how, when, where, how much they're going to contribute.
And wouldn't it be great if that money went to these communities versus somewhere?
Well, that's the intention of them, and a lot, same with the diversity plan. We heard at the Cannabis Control Commission meeting today that the required diversity plans, it doesn't look like they're being implemented when you look at the diversity numbers around the breakdown of who's getting licenses and who's working in the industry.
Yeah. So I got to ask both of you, as one of our most divisive articles with the most comments we did this past year at cannabis.net. Just on your own opinion, should towns that ban or is it called a ban anymore, or do not allow cannabis in their town, should they receive state tax revenue? Because it all goes into a bin like the lottery from cannabis sales.
Absolutely not.
Wasn't asking you.
Sorry.
You want to go first?
I mean,
it hurts. It hurts when to hear it. It's Old Testament type. No, you can't do that. Go ahead, Hillary.
I'm torn on that one because on one hand, it doesn't sound fair, does it?
No, not at all.
But on the other hand, like they're the residents of that town. Nobody deserves to be left behind, and like a rising tide should lift all ships. And like these are people. These are our neighbors. Just because the local officials or a small majority of the population said no to this, doesn't mean that there aren't plenty of people that want to benefit and want to be able to have enrich their community in some way. They're just kind of elbowed out of it by that local control.
That's a good answer. Rich, you're on the spot. That's a good answer.
I guess I'm just thinking there must be some examples in the past of other policies that led to taxes that led to, there were state taxes that the money was then allocated to the whole state.
So actually the lottery is like that.
Where there were towns that said we don't like it.
Yep, and they get the money.
I think that if we look at historically, this goes to everybody, no matter what their attitude is.
The answer from states, this state, at least Massachusetts was, it would be almost impossible to figure it out.
Yeah.
And like same thing, there are a few towns that ban lottery tickets, but they get their whatever quarterly check for whatever megabucks and
it makes me think of Colorado Springs, which for as many years as legality has happened in Colorado, still does not have recreational cannabis, and they're like the holdout there.
And you're up to $1 billion in tax revenue for the state, a little over, I guess, from recently. So Colorado Springs got that money. I mean, people are really angry when they even think about it. Like you said, it doesn't seem fair, but you're right. The small majority, if your town said no at 51%, those 49% who said yes shouldn't be. Or do they?
But think about how much more tax revenue the towns that said yes are getting. They're getting 3% of all the business.
Right.
Plus maybe some more that we don't know about it if it's outside the scope of, what's the host community agreement. But, that's gonna add up for those towns that did say yes and give them, bigger windfall.
Good answers. Very nice people we have in studio tonight.
Very
nice people tonight.
Hillary's becoming a star, and I'm psyched.
No one's angry.
Soon enough, I'll be out of here, folks. Okay, so the demo can go down a little bit. I understand. One of the biggest frustrations I've had, and I've railed about this on this show and on my In the Weeds podcast as well, is there's no public service campaign that is pro-cannabis. So you're relying on people to learn about this plant on their own. Everything they hear from the media that they have access to is about what the industry is doing wrong, how they screwed this up or screwed that up or this fine or that fine, rather than the stories about Stephen Mandilli, who stopped taking, he was on 47 opioids and he got rid of all of them through cannabis. There's thousands of those stories. Do we ever see those stories on the news? Do we ever see those stories or profiles in the various media outlets that are out there? That's what pisses me off, because I want balanced reporting. I want balanced content. Okay? By the way, it's a lot harder to do a soft story and a good news story than it is a bad news story. It goes back to human. Let's face it, we work as hard as we have to, and that's just the nature of the beast here.
I wish there was a pro-cannabis media out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Subscribe, share, like,
I wish there was
please, something like that. Go ahead, Rich.
What are some ideas that you think that are not, what is not there? Like, what is it that we could be doing? I mean,
educate the public about.
Because in Colorado, they do have, like, you go into dispensaries especially, but lots of different locations. They have all kinds of pamphlets and all kinds of educational material that's like required by law from the state.
And they're there here in Massachusetts too. But that's an opt-in. You have to go and make the effort in the dispensary, which means if you don't have a medical card, you're not going in. If you want to learn about it, you go to an adult use facility, and you can certainly do that. But my point is broadcasting and mass media. The public is still reacting to 80 years of false propaganda about the evil weed that cannabis is, as opposed to how perhaps if they hadn't prohibited it in 1937, half my family would have died of cancer.
Right.
Sorry.
It is kind of just word of mouth right now, I guess, still. It just kind of sucks.
What's that?
Other than you and the work you do.
Thanks,
you're doing a great job.
Well,
it is like individuals trying to educate individuals, and a lot of us that are speaking about this to maybe new people that are ignorant about it, like, we're not necessarily pros either. So, yeah, it would be great to have, like, experts having that information feed.
We had dinner with Dr. Ryan Zachman last night, and I said, you've got an opportunity to educate the public through what some of the benefits are. Explain what the endocannabinoid system actually is to humans, because it's in all of us. And when you tell a prohibitionist that they actually have this system in here that's waiting to be engaged with THC and CBD, they look at you like, oh, you're crazy. You're just pushing to something. You're just a nut. Well, I'm nuts, okay, because I'm passionate about this, because I see the benefits of this plant. And I hear these stories about how it saved people's lives and changed people's lives. This is my frustration.
I think you're right. It's easy to kind of forget that we live in like a cannabis bubble.
Right.
You know, we're following it, we're reading all this stuff. You know, it's like most people aren't that deep into it, so you know we're in a bubble. But that's why we're here.
Yeah,
But I will say
we're
something about-
normalizing, right?
Yeah,
Right.
We're all doing it.
Right.
But to counter what Hillary just said, I think Alabama and Mississippi approved the measure to vote. So I think this November, and I looked at the map,
Oh.
and you see Jeff Sessions, and you see Mississippi. I go, that's the beginning of the end right there. If those two go medical, like, come on,
Federal's
Mississippi and
matter time.
Alabama, like it's like what's left? I mean, what
Well,
do we have to
well, as we know about
They're gonna vote.
Louisiana,
Right.
Louisiana now has a medical program, but it's kind of a joke.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Although Arkansas is like on fire.
Oh, they are.
The
Arkansas,
numbers of
Missouri.
shops are out of control.
Missouri's going
But
And Oklahoma, too.
A buddy of mine does a big hemp business, big hemp facility in Tennessee, and I was kind of asking him, well, you must have tons of everybody in Tennessee must buy hemp products, and he was saying more like he thought like 20% of the population is really educated about CBD.
Right.
That's just CBD.
Right.
In Tennessee. So
And
how many of them are educated about THC? Probably like 5% or something.
Well, and then, of course, let's get educated about THCA and CBN, because the plant has hundreds of chemicals
Minor
in it.
cannabinoids, yeah.
Right, these
Cannabinoids,
minor cannabinoids are in there.
And terpenes and flavonoids.
And we're sitting here throwing these words out, and I guarantee you 90% of the people that are watching today or listening to us don't have a clue on what we're talking about.
Sometimes I think like actual television, you know, we've got so many hours and hours of stuff that you could watch on television.
Can we stop talking about the
Why
damn
don't we have a
presidential
channel
race?
that educates people about, you know, health,
Wellness.
essentially, like all the time, that's paid for by the government? That would be nice.
No. I don't want
You don't
anything
think
to do with the government.
Okay, well,
okay?
who's going to pay for it? Like, it's just,
Excuse me.
who do we
let
trust to put that out there? You know,
The people who understand. Well, first of all, the industry is growing. It should be an industry
For better or worse.
a station. It really should be. That's really. I mean, you look at the NCIA, the National Cannabis Industry Association, out of Washington D.C. They're the lobbyist group. Eventually, all the people that are in this business will be members of that association.
Yeah, I'm a member.
and controlling your story. This is, by the way, it's been pitched to the NCIA. I just want you to know we are partners. Oh no, we are partners with the NCIA. Actually, making it work now is this. You know, we're just starting this, right? But they're awesome.
so the wheels are in motion.
Yeah, but they're going slowly, but they're going in the right direction. And I think that is very important. And there's now what also is happening, not only here in Massachusetts, but in other places. There's a lot of backbiting. There's a lot of people who are just trying to make that buck and make their, humans, we are imperfect beings, okay? It's just how we're wired, okay? What's in it for me is what everybody wants to know immediately. It's just how we are wired, okay? But if you take a step back and you look at the whole picture, and that's really what I'm trying to do in this industry, is get them, everybody needs to get together and work together, not separate, and we'll see this happen. It may not happen in my lifetime, but it will happen in your lifetime for sure, because you're the youngest one in the room, I think.
I mean, we're way closer than we were 5 years ago.
Yeah.
100%.
Let's assume it'll be twice as fast in the next 5 years to get even more together.
And Mitch McConnell and his farm bill, he had no idea what kind of a Pandora's box he was opening by signing on, by getting CBD legal.
Yeah,
right?
but you can bet that he's got investments in the hemp industry.
Oh yeah.
Oh, gee, do you think anybody else in politics might have money in the hemp? Or I'm just
Moving
saying.
a lot quicker.
We
all of a
got, we,
sudden.
got,
Anyway.
we got about 30 seconds.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Oh.
I mean,
How do they get in touch with you, Rich?
How do they get in touch with you, Rich?
Richard.Guerra, Guerra at sensimag.com. And yeah, we've got awesome events coming up this year. We've got one next month, that's not a month at all.
No,
February 11th at Sonia, pretty much the Middle East. We're doing a Sensi Connect B2B event.
Cambridge?
In Cambridge, yeah. Bringing a bunch of our advertisers together with other business owners and industry professionals.
Are you inviting the city council of Cambridge too?
Not yet. We are talking, And as a matter of fact, we are Hillary and I are doing some city council work in Cambridge. We're doing decriminalized nature Cambridge, as well as decriminalized nature across Massachusetts.
We're moving in the right direction.
And nature being psilocybin, ayahuasca, DMT, that kind of thing. Plants.
We'll talk about pro-psilocybin media in a little while. Anyway, hey, Richard.Guerra, thanks so much. Great to see you. Hillary King, welcome to the team.
Thank
Curt
you.
Dalton, as always.
Great show.
Mike Zotos does the directing here and the technical stuff. Dan French helps me out and produces this thing.
Thanks,
I want to
guys.
thank all our guests. That'll do it for another edition of Weed Talk with Curt and Jimmy. I'm Jimmy Young from Pro Cannabis Media.
And I'm Curt Dalton from Cannabis.net.
See you next time.
Happy 2020. Oh, I got it in there.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.